Here's patent. US 5845220. Patented or applied for by Harold E. Puthoff, Austin, Texas, in August the 23rd, 1993. So this has expired, my friends. This has expired. Okay? This is a communication method and apparatus with signals comprising of scalar and vector potentials without electromagnetic fields. What did Hal Puthoff do? He worked on the Psychic Spy program, which was transferred to Science Applications International Corporated in 1992. He worked with Ken Shoulders from 1982 to 1992. He did the Psychic Spy program, and then he does a scalar and vector potential device, which is a communication device. Well, let's go and have a look what we've got here. Well, we've got a thing that does an alternating electric field, and we've got an alternating magnetic field. And we come down here. And one of the embodiments, oh my God, it's a toroidal solenoid. A toroidal solenoid. A first order toroidal moment generator. And he has electric field generators here so that he can oscillate the toroidal moment and the electric field moment to create an anapole-like structure. And by varying the phase, you have phase-driven process. The patent number is 5845220. So, this is my, how should we put this? This is my big bada boom. This is the guy that worked on the Psychic Spy program has a technology that he patented after passing that work over that is based on toroidal moments without actually discussing that. He's talking about it last year as what he is currently working on. And it's a communication technology that is able to go through rock. It's able to go through metal. It's able to go through water. And, just like you had Ninel doing things through other materials, moving things through other materials. So she is, in my view, projecting particles in there. Now, I have argued that there must be something going on in the brain, of myself when I'm remote viewing, or in the Ninel, or in Russell Targ, or in any Ingo Swann, or whatever. These people that are able to do this, that must be similar to this process. And I say this because if it is doing it, and we are a biological entity, then we must be able to create toroidal moments. And as I showed you before, we have proven categorically through experiment that the minimum fractal toroidal moment you need is 2. You need 2 to create a toroidal moment. That is in this paper from 2011. Observation of orbital currents in CUO. And this is, in my view, the manifestation of an orbital current in CUO. This is CUO. This is CUO. Okay, so the minimum you need is 2. The yin and the yang, the balance in the chi, in the prana. Okay, so where this gets very interesting is that after one of my presentations, I'm very sorry if I don't remember who sent this to me, but if it was you, put it in the chat and I'll record it in the remote view blog, credit you. But this was sent to me a little while back when I was talking about similar aspects. And let me see if I can find it now, because I might have lost it. Just give me a second. Okay. I almost could not believe what I was sent, but it is true. It is what it is, and so we must have to accept it. Mysterious spiral-shaped signals detected in the human brain. There are many layers to the human brain, from its wrinkled exterior to its darkest depths. Scientists are trying to understand them all, but in honing in on the brain's intricate neural circuitry, they appear to have overlooked patterns of activity swirling on the surface. A team of fluid physicists from the University of Sydney in Australia and Fudan University in China discovered brain signals rippling across the brain's outermost layer, which we know of neural tissue, the cerebral cortex, on scans of 100 young adults' brains. Signals naturally arranged as spirals, like vortices in a draining bathtub, or whirlwinds of turbulent air. In the windmills of your mind. Gaining insights into how the spirals are related to cognitive processes could significantly enhance our understanding of the dynamics. In that interview between Weinstein and Puthoff, he mentions about how anesthetics shut down consciousness. I would like this research to be conducted with people that are under anesthetic, with their consent, obviously, to see if these spiral vortices are changed in some way. I suspect they will be. And I suspect those people that exhibit telekinesis and remote viewing will have far more significant activity at the times that they are exhibiting those psi phenomena. Gaining insights into how spirals are related to cognitive processing could significantly enhance our understanding of the dynamics and functions of the brain, says senior author Pulin Gong, a physicist at the University of Sydney. The cortex is the wrinkled outer layer of the neuron-dense tissue that folds into two hemispheres of our brain, responsible for computing complex cognitive functions such as language and strong memories. Neuroscientists have mostly focused on the mapping brain activity from the bottom up to understand the inner workings of regions like the cortex, imaging cells to determine how they communicate as networks. In an exciting twist, the team analyzed brain imaging data collected as part of Human Connectome project using methods most familiar to fluid physicists studying complex wave patterns in turbulent flows. Functional MRI scans produce imaging data that shows when and where the brain lights up in a burst of activity flooded with oxygenated blood. You breathe in and out to control the chi in your body, in the prana, flooded with oxygenated blood. Her heart rate went up to 240 beats per minute. When I'm remote viewing, my heart rate and my blood, my temperature accelerates very, very high. The spiraling patterns identified in the data resemble a kaleidoscope waves, or, when simplified in directional vortices, circular pressure lines on a weather map. These spiral patterns exhibit intricate and complex dynamics moving across the brain's surface while rotating around central points known as phase singularities. I thank you. Boom! Bada boom! Big bada boom. I'll show you the video and then I'll show you bits of paper. I've been trying to get this paper, but I haven't been able to get it yet. Let's see. Not that. We will lose the advert there and I will kill the audio. There we go. So I don't have a copyright strike. Right. Okay. I don't know what happened there. We will kill that. Okay. All right. So here we go. So you can see a phase map here that I was showing you earlier. Now your hard work in watching me earlier hopefully will pay off. Right, so here is the phase map on the left in the cortex. And here are the yin and yang vortex pairs in the main structure. Okay? And you can see them moving around. That, to me, is a thing of extreme beauty. Phase singularities, yin and yang vortices moving around in the cerebral cortex. This thin structure. Now, what is that? What is that telling us? This is how it works. It's just how it works. I've been telling you how it works for literally years. And then this paper comes out in the middle of June 2023. From functional MRI. What does function? Go and look up functional MRI. What is that? There is a difference between the magnetic state of oxygenated blood, which is magnetic, which is diamagnetic, I think, and non-oxygenated blood, which is magnetic. It's to do with hemoglobin and the interaction with blood. Now, also, what that means is these vortices are magnetic in nature, and we know that if you have a magnetic vortex, you have a toroidal moment. This is producing toroidal moments at the phase singularity, 100%. There are yin and yang toroidal moments in this work. Schematic illustration of spiral-like rotational wave patterns and their interactions clockwise and anti-clockwise right. So left, clockwise, anti-clockwise right. These are interactions between the solitons, and we know that in the work of Neil Crichton Gold, we do get opposites coming together, and we do get similar ones coming together. Here are, maybe I can get this at a bit higher resolution. You can see how they've mapped it and how they showed that. So when you are watching that video here, this is essentially, as far as I can work out, a good chunk of the whole brain, right? So when you look at the scale of these phase structures here, they are on the scale of the brain overall structure, as I have in my title slide here, and as is present in images of brain matter. Okay, so the natural clusters that come from the cosmos, the N radiation, the Parkhomov radiation, are in the microns to millimeters. The grey matter is on an average of 2.5 millimeters. So could we be interacting with relic neutrinos that are like sub this wavelength? That is possible. And could we be using the toroidal moments that are demonstrated here, that are at the scale of the so-called crenellations on the brain moving about? And you can see them here. The vorticity, this is -2 vorticity, this is +2 vorticity. These are the phase diagrams of those two things, and this shows the wave structure as they're moving across. But because this is using functional magnetic resonance imaging, go and look it up. It's looking at magnetic vortexes, and if you've got a magnetic vortex, the order coming through the center of that magnetic vortex is a toroidal moment. This center point here, the phase singularity of the magnetic vortex in the cortex of the brain, is the toroidal moment. And I believe that that is able to interact with the field in the environment, and you're able to cohere matter and also project thoughts through this and record memories and all of the above. So I can't wait to get the full version of this paper and have a look at it. Maybe this image is quite nice as well, probably. Now, in this one, they're talking about the story listening. If I remove my mugshot, story listening, and then math listening, right? And this is story answering and math answering. So they are able to read these magnetic vortices in the brain when the brain is going through certain types of cognitive processing. What would happen if you shut down the consciousness? Would you lose all of these magnetic vortices? I would probably say with a 95-degree certainty that you wouldn't see any of these vortices when consciousness is not there. I would imagine the same would be occurring if you were knocked out and you were unconscious at that time. And I would imagine during sleep that your vortices in your brain are at de minimis in these cognitive areas. I would suggest that when I'm remote viewing or having a epiphany, or when Nina Kaligina was doing her PK, or when other people are doing their PK events. Remember what I said about when people are doing PK. You kind of have to go through this process of channeling this energy and getting in an intense emotional state. I believe that that's what's happening here. And you are a transmitter and a receiver. You are a transmitter and receiver. And it is a deep responsibility, which I was saying the other day. When you are going into these deep emotional states, you can project that information and that emotion into the far field. If you're highly charismatic, that can be picked up by humans as well. Absolutely. When someone comes into a room, they have a magnetic energy. You know, those kind of phrases. They are electrifying personalities. They can hold an audience very, very easily. This is what I believe is going on, that there are, as we can see now from fact-derived analysis using functional MRI, there are yin and yang vortices, the minimum required to create a fractal toroidal pair. So remember, when we are looking at a toroidal moment here, okay, there is a toroidal moment produced by this magnetic vortex. So a vortex and an anti-vortex producing the toroidal moment. So when we are looking at the brain here, and we have a vortex and an anti-vortex, and we have a vortex and an anti-vortex, or an anti-vortex and a vortex, that together produces a toroidal moment. Okay? That, in my view, will be changing and communicating through media. And this is where it gets a little bit spooky, because I have warned in questioning in the past, and I think the first person I gave my thoughts to was Dr. George Eagley. I was very concerned of the barbaric nature of solitary confinement, because I think that we have established that relic neutrinos and clusters thereof are used by life and condensed by them. So every atom in your body interacts with the field, but larger clusters of these things can be physically used in processes in the body and cognitive processes. Okay? And when you cohere those yourself, like Nina Kaligina is doing, you are making a larger cluster of the available clusters that are available to you. And then you are emitting those maybe through your feet or through your fingers, and they will find ground. They will go into the body of the earth. So there is a limited amount of these things potentially in your environment. Now, if you had a tungsten filament light bulb, a long time ago, I said that if you get rid of tungsten filament light bulbs, you won't have this production of this type of radiation. And so, like, if you're living indoors in a room that doesn't produce these things with closed windows, then you are not available to the outside diffusion flux of these clusters, and you're not available to the synthetic production from a tungsten filament light bulb. So you're really in a bad place. And that's why I said it was very bad during the nonsense of the last several years to be locked inside, because it will affect your overall life health. Okay, so these ejected from the fingers or grounded and lost. So if you have an absorber nearby, it will deplete those available. So like if you're in a metal environment, or you're contacting a metal bed at night, or you've got a metal sink or something, they will capture those out of your body. And if you haven't got an environment, and I've probably spelt that wrong, feng shui, that is allowing for a flux, if you don't open your windows every day, if you don't get outside, your body will be continually depleted. And this is why I say it's barbaric. If you have a small glazed window, Alexander Parkhomov discussed that, any dense matter can reflect these relic neutrinos, okay? And presumably the larger clusters thereof. If you don't have a natural producer of them, and by the way, he had a very large ionizer in his room when I visited him in 2015 doing those experiments. It's not disclosed, but I've mentioned it before. I thought it might be playing a role. That will be producing charge clusters in the air, and that might have been some reason why his experiments were effective and others weren't. But anyway, the point being is that if you are, you are sensitive to this, like you're sensitive to electromagnetic storms, to earthquakes, to you're going to suffer maybe more, but in a normal circumstance. But if you are trapped in solitary confinement, you use the available ones in the room. No more can come in solitary confinement where you don't have the light on, or the light is an artificial light, which is like maybe not producing these things naturally. You are then going to be progressively disabled from being able to connect to the Akashic record and from the wider conscious field. And in those instances, you literally go mad. You get disconnected from reality. And it is insanely barbaric. It's insanely barbaric to put someone into a human that is always wanting to be connected to other social beings that are projecting this information and receiving this information and connecting, even if you're not connecting ordinarily, to be disconnected from this flux from the cosmos. And I would call for it to be outlawed on this basis when better understanding is there. I believe the handshake, which was also sought to be removed from human interaction, and bodily contact in general was sought to be removed through these physical contacts of handshaking. When you have a handshake, I'm saying that these clusters that have been into your body and through your body and are somehow entangled with your body, when you intend to make a connection with a third party, so like first person time you've met someone and you want to show that you want to connect with them, you literally handshake. And in that handshake, you have an exchange of these structures that are entangled with each party. It's literally a contract. And I believe that it's a key part of a contract in terms of you are connecting with that person. When you are meeting someone that you've not met for a long time, but you're very good friends or buddies or whatever, hugging them and shaking their hand, depending on the nature of the relationship or the culture that you're in, that is very, very important, in my view, to share these clusters that have come through your body and are entangled with your consciousness in terms of relation making. Again, what they did in the last couple of years was utterly barbaric on a human spiritual level. And what I'm trying to get to the root of here is why scientifically that is the case. In the case of psi phenomena, you literally have the man who did the research into psi, and the equivalent in the Soviet Union was Dr. Alexander Parkhomov. And via doing that research in the 60s and 70s and 80s, he was able to develop the techniques to develop experiments to prove this flux of N radiation, which he then assumed is neutrino-like. That is how he did it, by running the or being a key member of the Soviet spy program. It is in his book, Space, Earth, Human, in the 4th chapter. It's a very interesting chapter in his book. So you have two people. One came out doing Lena, and the other one came out doing communication patents straight afterwards, straight after a communication patent. And the patent is using toroidal geometries that lead to the production of scalar and vector potentials as described by Ken Shoulders in his book in 1987. That is what this patent is showing you. This is showing you that the person that knew about remote viewing, this guy went on, as soon as he finished that program, to develop communication technologies using, in my view, the exact basis for remote viewing for the sixth sense. Okay? For telekinesis, for all of those related effects.